at a certain angle, when you're looking at the headlamp only on the right side, it actually has a sort of like a 5 on it. The bolsters for both front passengers, it can move to make it tighter on your body or not. And if it's already really good inside the city, just imagine how great it would be out on the highway. There are many vehicles that are available on the market that are considered to be the standard in that particular segment. For instance, when it comes to full-size sedans, you've got the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. When you're talking about pickup trucks, it's arguable, but you kind of have to understand that it is the F-150. When it comes to adventure bikes, it's got to be the GS. It's a little tall for my taste, however. Now, when it comes to mid-size sedans, there's this, the BMW 5 Series. Before we go anywhere, I'd like to point out two very important factors. Number one, its price. It's available at 4,290,000 Philippine pesos, which is quite a bit of coin if you think about it, considering that this is only a 2-liter, 4-cylinder, entry-level model kind of automobile. But it's not actually its fault. That's because of the import taxes that we have. Some might argue, however, that, well, everybody has to go through the import taxes anyway. You're absolutely right. Which brings us to point number 2. At that price, this is not a need. You don't need to arrive in a BMW, whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an executive, or whatever. But you want to. Do you need help purchasing your car insurance? Head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph/car-insurance. Here, you can compare prices and customize your insurance coverage from many of the Philippines' top providers. When you've selected the insurance that's best for you, simply fill out the application and complete the transaction with ease through Visa, MasterCard, GCash, GrabPay, or PayPal, and receive your policy within the next business day. Get the best deal on insurance with AutoDeal. The 5 Series nameplate debuted in 1972. It established the very iconic design language for BMs at the time. This was the beginning of the very successful line of sedans, the first generation alone selling 700,000 units in 9 years. Despite BMW being known for their legendary 6-cylinder motors, the 5 was the first offered in a 4-cylinder, much like the 520 we have here today. The E28 debuted in 1981. With it came a bunch of new tech like ABS, a new look, and even a monitor for the driver to see how their inputs affect the efficiency of the motor, which is found in many modern cars today. In 1988, BMW introduced the E34. It was a huge leap for the 5, with BMW testing it in all kinds of conditions for over 7 million kilometers in testing for the perfect sedan. One of the results of the rigorous testing was the 5 Series having a drag coefficient of 0.30, a benchmark during its time. In 1995 came the 4th generation E39, and in my opinion, this design is absolutely ageless. The sleek lines around it and the combination of a sporty edge, it just gives it the best of both worlds. In classic BMW fashion, it brought with it not only a huge overhaul in the styling, but in the tech as well. It had a multifunctional steering wheel, an onboard computer, and a car phone. Man, if you had a car phone back then, you meant business. This was also the first mass-produced car with an all-aluminum chassis and had a plethora of driver aids to make the car safer than ever. 2003 came with not only the release of God's gift upon man, Bruce Almighty, but also the daringly designed E60. In my opinion, the most important thing to come out of this Generation 5 was the insane V10 powered M5. Have you heard this thing? The sixth generation was a return to its form in styling. A much more macho look was chosen rather than its predecessor's extravagant look. And this proved to be a great decision, as it is the best-selling 5 Series of all time, selling 2 million units from 2010 to 2017. Now we arrive to the G30, with BMW taking all its experience in making a premium sedan. You see their expertise in each aspect of the automobile. Let's take a closer look and see what it's all about. The BMW 5 Series has always maintained to be sleek, straightforward, and sharp. Save maybe for the 5th generation E60, because that was a little bit out there. But on this 7th generation G30, well, it still brings about its business look to it. It's got a lot of presence, it commands a lot of presence rather, but it doesn't attract any unwanted attention, much like a well-tailored Armani suit. Wait, that's Italian. This is just Hugo Boss? Yeah. The lights all around are LEDs, and between the headlights you'll find the signature kidney grille. At first glance you might think they're not really anything else other than the trims, because the grille really doesn't lead anywhere. But these are adaptive kidney grilles, and what that means is that it's closed most times to improve efficiency by making the car more aerodynamic. When the car senses it needs more ventilation, they open up, allowing for more fresh air to enter. The rest of the car follows suit as well, as it's pretty much devoid of fake vents, which sadly is a thing with many modern cars. So not only is that damn cool how it opens and closes for better aerodynamic, but this actually helps too, because the air is channeled through and out through the body. Then there's a little bit of a flex that you don't really necessarily see quite often, but at a certain angle when you're looking at the headlamp only on the right side, it actually has a sort of like a 5 on it. Now, I don't know if it's intentional or if I'm just crazy. Yeah, I'm just crazy. Down the side, you've got more real vents. And when I say real, because they actually work, channeling the turbulent air from the front wheel well down the side of the automobile. Now, while we're down here, allow me to point out these 19 inches of goodness found all around the automobile. Up front, you've got 245/40 series tires, and at the rear, you've got 275/35 series tires, a little bit wider. Low and hugging the ground, it's got 131 millimeters of ground clearance. And, mind you, stopping power is disc brakes all around. Apart from the repeaters on the side mirrors, there really isn't much else to point out when you're talking about the profile, rather the side profile of the automobile. It's just that, it's plain, it's simple, it's crisp, it's clean, and this shot actually wasn't really necessary. We just wanted to put it in because it's pretty. It really is. Now, continuing on with the theme of real things on this automobile are not one, but 2 exhaust tips found down below. And they look great because they're also painted black as part of a continuation of the shadow trim that's available for the Sport variant. To open the boot, there is a kick function, and when you do open her up, you are looking at over 500 liters of space. Now, this is made possible on this sedan because there is no spare tire. If there were, then you'd be limited to 390 liters. But since there's none, you have over 500. That's because the tires on this guy are run flat tires. A bit more expensive, yeah, you gotta shed out a little bit more for that, but damn, look at them. They look friggin' awesome. Normally when we film the rear seats of automobiles, we have the engine off to try and keep the cabin as quiet as possible. But in this 5 Series, the engine is running and I've got the air going on for me, so I'm not dying of the heat, which is just a testament to how quiet and comfortable this cabin is. Speaking of comfortable, this is Jack's driving position. Now, he is almost 6 feet tall, and I wanted to show, obviously, that this is a mid-size sedan so that the leg room would be good, right? Well, it's not spectacular. It's decent, but it's not spectacular. What is spectacular is the headroom and the fact that your butt is way back in. These seats are designed so that it's pushed back as far as possible so that you have thigh support up the wazoo. Telling you, falling asleep back here is probably gonna happen in an instant. Now, 2 adults here, yes. A third, not gonna happen because the tunnel is actually pretty high. Toys back here do, however, include air vents up front with a thermostat. You've got 2 USB charging points that are Type-C. You have a 12-volt socket available to you. You've got a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Up on top, you've got map lights, and on the sides, you've got bottle holders that will hold even an average size to large size bottle. Oh, and I have to add that even the door cards are soft touch. So really not much plastic back here, kind of like the opposite of Pamela Anderson. There is also, for privacy, check this out. Shade there and shade, I don't know if you can see this, but it's the side that you can hook up. And then there's one extra shade that you can put up, but you have to ask the driver to do it, and that comes in the form of a back shade. Now, on the business end of the BMW 5 Series, everything in here just basically, well, it works really without any fault. In most modern sedans nowadays, you have a touchscreen that controls several functions inside the automobile, be it your air, drive functions, whatever it may be. And sometimes that experience is not as pleasant as you want it to be. In here, you've got physical buttons to control those things. Your drive mode is found down here. This knob controls the infotainment screen, and then you've got your knobs for your air. So whether this is your first BMW in 10 years or you have a garage full of the latest and most modern cars, you get in here and it's actually quite familiar to you, really. It is. I mean, even the radio, you can operate it like a much older automobile, simple and straightforward. One of the more modern things that you may need to get used to would be the digital shifter. It's a large departure from what you're actually used to, but to be honest with you, there isn't much of a learning curve on this thing. You'll get used to it really, really easily. Onto the cockpit. Up front, you've got analog gauges that actually look like digital gauges, but the only thing digital about it would be the trip computer found in the center. Then you've got buttons on your steering wheel to control your audio and your cruise. And unfortunately, no paddle shifters on a 5 Series, which is a tad disappointing, really. What isn't disappointing is the infotainment system. The infotainment in the 520i is an 8.8-inch touchscreen that can also be controlled by the iDrive controller in the center. It's very responsive and rarely lags. It comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The onboard navigation works well too, and the system itself allows for various customizations based on your preferences. You can choose a split screen setup with your CarPlay on the left and your choice of trip, clock, or vehicle information and others on the right. Various settings of the car can be configured on here, one of which is the color of the mood lights around. Comfort for the front passengers is absolutely above par. You've got power seats up the wazoo that move in so many different ways, and you've even got memory for the driver. Then there's the fact that these bolsters, this is your driving position, Jack? Jeez, man, look at this. The bolsters for both front passengers, it can move to make it tighter on your body or not. Sort of like making you feel like either a burrito or like you're being swaddled by your mother. Aw, those were the good old days. Wow, this is a trip, man. I love the fact that this thing moves by itself. It's like a ghost in the machine. Now, to continue on with talking about how comfortable the front cabin is, are all the soft touches that you can find all around the cabin. Not just in the back, but up here at front as well. And to be honest with you, it helps with the sound deadening of the automobile, which is why it's so comfortable in here. However, I gotta say that there are a lot of piano blacks found all around the cabin and in places where you would normally touch, like around the shifter, the radio, even the door cards here when you're getting in and out of the automobile. And it's bothersome because, well, yeah, it does look good, but even at park, look at the amount of dust that there is on the car. Yes, we understand that we are filming, so it's different when you guys are going to be driving and the doors are closed, but still, it's just a little bit bothersome. It looks great, but maybe we should start a petition. No more piano blacks, like ever. People are gonna hate us, aren't they? Yeah. If we haven't already told you, this is a BMW 520i, which means up front you've got a 4-cylinder twin power turbo that produces 184 horses and a whopping 290 newton meters of torque from a 4-cylinder. That's absolutely awesome. Mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission with Steptronic. Now on the highway, we can and have pushed it to 20 kilometers per liter, which is pretty darn good. Inside the city, okay, 8 kilometers per liter. Not great, not bad. But when that clears up, you're doing about 12 kilometers per liter. So those figures, although they're nothing great, you have to imagine that this also is a much heavier car. And those figures are more for subcompact sedans. So that's pretty darn good. Now, when you bury your foot on the accelerator, the transmission doesn't exactly have lightning reflexes. At 60 kilometers per hour, I decided to stand on the accelerator, and it took a while for the car to get going. Maybe about a second and a half. But when it did, well, the 290 newton-meters of torque have got to count for something, and they do. So there is a punch. But what's nice about it is that it gradually fades out and it gets you up to speed very comfortably. Understandably, yes, this is a 5 Series, but it's not the mighty, menacing M5. So when people who buy this automobile understand that, they know it's not an M5, and they realize that this is just a very comfortable saloon. Steering is very light, the inputs are actually very sharp, and the overall dynamics of the car are actually very darn good. What I wanted to add is just how stable this car actually is. You don't necessarily need to take it out of the city for twisties and whatnot to understand just exactly how stable it is. Because even at 60 kilometers per hour, when you're taking slight bends inside the city, it just feels so darn planted. Granted, it may be because the car is obviously much heavier than your average compact or subcompact sedans out there, and the tires are maybe twice as wide. But it's not an M5, as we mentioned earlier, and yet it's still so darn stable. Body roll, there's barely any, man. Now, I've made it no secret that I've never been a fan of the auto start-stop function, which this car obviously has. But when we came to a stop, I actually thought that the motor had died because it's so quiet in here. And not just when you're at the standstill, but even the NVH when you're traveling along EDSA or the bumpy roads inside the city. It's very, very quiet. Considering the tires are so skinny and you've got 19s on, it does a pretty good job at shielding you from all the noises that are happening outside, be it motorcycles, trucks, buses. Even the rumble strips don't sound bad at all, and I'm only doing less than 60 kilometers per hour. It's pretty darn good. It was important for us to take the car out on EDSA and see just exactly how the car would feel on normal driving conditions when you're traveling less than 40 kilometers per hour. And I gotta say that the suspension, it won't feel sporty, no. It will feel a bit stiffer. Stiffer, yet still very comfortable. Let's be honest with you, people that are going to buy this automobile are not exactly your whippersnappers that want a stiff suspension so that they can carve a mountain out with it. No, not exactly. And even though this has a comfort and sport and eco pro mode, it doesn't do anything to the suspension. It just tightens up the steering wheel, and the throttle response is much different. But the overall ride quality, like I said, or rather what I was talking about here on EDSA, is that, well, it's not ratty at all. No, not even if you've got skinny tires up front and in the back and you've got 19-inch wheels. It just feels very, very stable. There is a good balance of the car being able to absorb the bumps on the road and keeping you absolutely comfortable and quiet too, because the NVH is actually awesome in here while you're driving or being driven inside the car. When you put everything together, the great NVH, the fuel efficiency, the comfort for driver and or passenger, this thing makes for, to be honest, a really good city car. And if it's already really good inside the city, just imagine how great it would be out on the highway. And I'd like to think, yeah, that's what you're paying for. Yes, okay, granted, you're paying for the badge and you're paying for the taxes. But really, that money is just going to, well, comfort and prestige. There's no two ways about it. Odd that I'm going to say this because of, well, the price of the automobile, but it's actually the perfect car for anyone that's looking for a no-frills ride. The build quality is absolutely spectacular. The engine is fuel efficient, which is more important nowadays considering the gas prices out there. And the comfort inside the automobile is great, whether you're driving or being driven. It's all around well put together. Picture this. You've just come from a 16-hour day. You're trying to rule the world by chopping down the forex, or you're stocking your stocks, whatever business people do. And at the end of the day, you just want to get inside to an automobile that works. That's exactly what this car is. And this car, if you do decide to get it, it shows that hard work does pay off.